So, are there any movies that you guys have watched recently that haven't made it on the podcast yet?
Well, there's a few.
Yeah.
Well, one of the ones that actually jumped out that we watched actually this week that we got a kick out of was Gene Wilder's Haunted Honeymoon.
You know, I actually see that you kind of have that box right there.
Yeah, we do. Yes, we do. We have the Thorn EMI box back when they were calling it Canon HBO or HBO Canon Video.
Yeah, I was kind of confused about that when I saw the box. Does that have like that? Is that Canon Video?
Canon Films, they probably had an output deal.
I think they had an output
HBO,
deal,
and that included getting to add their name to
their
brand.
So I think it's like the entire company of Thorn EMI. Even the theme is the same. They just don't have Thorn EMI.
Yeah.
I guess EMI is not involved with it anymore. But let me just read the back of the Haunted Honeymoon box. In 1939, the heyday of radio, Larry Abbott, Gene Wilder, and Vicki Pearl, Gilla Radner, who star in a spine-tingling series of terror tales, are getting married. There's only one flaw in their happiness. Larry suffers from phobias, sudden outbreaks of irrational fear that threaten to ruin his career. Vicki insists it's just wedding jitters. The wedding is set to take place in the Abbott family mansion, where great Aunt Kate, Dom DeLuise, lives amongst howling storms, flickering candles, secret passages, and deranged servants. Kate suspects that somebody in the family is a werewolf. She's not sure which one. Since Larry, whom she raised from childhood, seems to be the least likely, she's leaving her fortune to him. But he has to live to collect, and one of the money-grabbing relatives is trying to scare the life of Larry for keeps. I don't know if that's the best description of...
When are these VHS boxes ever the best description?
Yeah, I know, exactly. Well, it's strangely detailed without kind of getting at the heart of the story in a strange way. I hadn't realized the intricacies of Kate's situation until I read the back of the box.
Director Gene Wilder's nostalgia for radio plays adds an additional layer to this movie. Listen in as Quentin and Roger discuss the art form and reminisce on their memories from childhood.
Look, the thing that is very charming about Haunted Honeymoon, nowadays, any movie made in the 80s of this time, is going to be considered an old film. All right. I don't think of them that way, but that's the way a lot of people would think of them. But this is an old film made by an even older soul. And everything he's coming from is just coming from a man of Gene Wilder's time and his place of comedy and his place of what he thinks is funny and what he remembers and his nostalgia for those things that he remembers. So on one hand, the film is him throwing his hat in a haunted house spook show kind of comedy vehicle, like the George Marshall haunted house comedies that he made very popular, like Bob Hope's Ghost Breakers, Scared Stiff with Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. That's George Marshall as well. But then also like Hold That Ghost with Abbott and Costello. I mean, all the great comedy guys, they have their spook show. They have their The Ghost and Mr. Chicken with Don Knotts.
Yeah, to name a Steve-O title.
Yeah, so exactly. So that's them, being trapped in a haunted house or being trapped with werewolves and vampires and ghosts, and them having to deal with it. So that's a particular subgenre inside of the, not only just the comedy genre, but in the comedy star vehicle genre. And he's coming from the old school place of this. He's not coming from a Ghostbusters place. I mean, a case can be made that Ghostbusters was coming from that place and mined it for a new generation. He's purposely not doing that. He's doing the version that Bob Hope could have done. He's doing the version that Danny Kaye could have. I mean, he's especially doing the version that Danny Kaye could have done. He's very Danny Kaye-ish in this whole movie. But then there also is the other added benefit, one of the true charms of the movie, as much as I like the whole haunted house comedy thing, is the fact that they're radio stars and the fact that it starts doing the Mystery Theater Haunted Honeymoon.
That is such an amazingly good sequence.
They do it so well, but the part about it that I find nostalgic in a way that we're never going to see again is Gene Wilder was just old enough where that form of radio play crossed over into his lexicon, but probably when he was a little boy, probably those are probably childhood memories of him listening to shows like that and being fascinated by how the actors pulled them together and stuff. And so he does this really loving tribute that's at the beginning of the movie and it's towards the end, and it's a loving tribute to it. But it's still kind of offhand. It's something that he just wanted to do, something he thought would be charming and add to the film. And it does add vermicitude to the film. But it's not the whole show. If anyone was going to do a thing like that now, that would be the whole show. It would be the reason that they're doing it. And the fact that it's just kind of this tossed off little thing that's done as exquisitely as it can possibly be. Like, it just shows an older man from an older time doing things that interested him, especially as a young boy. Yeah. And that kind of charming naivete is all throughout the entire film.
When I was a boy, I used to, before I would go to bed, I would listen to, on KNX News Radio in Los Angeles, E.G. Marshall did Radio Mystery Theater. And I used to listen to it every night before I went to bed. And it was radio plays, like mystery radio plays, like the Haunted Honeymoon radio play in Haunted Honeymoon. And so I grew up loving all that, I'm going downstairs.
Yeah.
Let's open the door now.
Yeah.
And all those effects. And when they were cutting that, Gene Wilder so lovingly and frankly so classically shot that opening. It's so classically
but that's what he turns there's the big operetta set piece at the end of Sherlock Holmes Murder. At first it was delicious, the chicken is so delicious. Now we drink. Now let's hope we don't get sick. Okay, so it's not, he doesn't do an entire operetta. He plays it for real, the way it would really be done, and that's the charm of it. That's the comedy of it.
Haunted Honeymoon doesn't play like a typical haunted house mystery movie. Up next, Quentin, Roger, and I discuss several niche genres that Haunted Honeymoon could fit into and the movies within them. So, Roger knows that I love the Haunted Mansion genre of movies.
Yeah, and specifically the Haunted Mansion.
Specifically Haunted Mansion 2003. It's one of my absolute favorite all-time movies.
The Eddie Murphy movie?
The Eddie Murphy movie. I won't get into my whole analysis of the historical, in my opinion, blaxploitation Disney movie aspect of it. But I love Haunted Mansion movies, like Mad Monster Party is technically a haunted monster, which is one of my favorite childhood movies, which is going to be playing at the New Beverly, which I'm going to be going to the kiddie show. So, and it's very similar to murder mystery movies, kind of like Clue and Murder by Death, obviously, but without the murder aspect. But this one kind of has a little bit of that murder aspect, even though it's not a mystery.
Well, part of the thing is they set up the idea in the film. There's the Haunted Honeymoon. That's the story that they're doing. But they're, guess what? They're also getting married now, and they're going to go off and take a break. And then a doctor shows up, played by Paul Smith, Bluto from Popeye.
He's amazing in this.
Yes. Well, he's amazing at the beginning. Then
at the beginning, but the fact that we hear his voice, I had never really heard Paul Smith. I mean, he's playing a Turkish guard in Midnight Express, and he's playing Bluto in Popeye's. So he's not really talking a lot.
Yeah, he's in a lot of European stuff.
And then suddenly he speaks in this, and he has this kind of erudite, educated voice, that of a doctor, or maybe a radio play doctor.
And also when he first comes in, how they have that shot of when you're looking into his brain, into his forehead.
The idea is, his career could be derailed because the Gene Wilder's character is just too nervous about things. And so what I think we need to do is we need to scare him out of his wits, absolutely out of his wits, and that'll get rid of it for good. And he's going up to his family's mansion where he'll be alone with just his family members for the weekend before he gets married. And I think that's the perfect time to do it. And we're gonna scare him to literally death, and that's going to save him. So that's all set up. That's the setup for the story that's going to happen. So now, as opposed to a lot of these movies where it's you see the werewolf walking around and you see the vampire walking around or the ghost walking around, and then then it turns out later that it's not really a ghost, it's some Scooby-Doo master plan and people are wearing masks. So in Haunted Honeymoon, that's the case going in, but now you're waiting to find out that there really is a werewolf. Now you're waiting to find out there really is a ghost. Now you're waiting to find out there really is a Frankenstein creature.
Like most tapes that Quentin and Roger put on, this movie has both its shining moments and its faults.
Listen in as we discuss our opinions on the film, the standout moments within, and the issues that arise.
To be honest, though, I didn't really like this movie all that much. But there are two parts of it that I really enjoyed, and one of them is the dance scene in the middle.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I actually,
Ball in the Jack.
yeah, I really enjoyed that. I found it was like fun. It was light. It brought like some playfulness to the movie, that like energy that it needed to be pumped up right in that moment. I'm not sure if you guys liked the dance sequence.
No, I liked it. I like the thing about that I liked is it's kind of a non sequitur. It kind of comes out of nowhere. But Gilda Radner and Dom DeLuise are having such a good time
Yeah,
doing it.
it's infectious.
Yeah, and look, they're just having such a good time doing it, and the movie just commits to it 100%. That it actually, I think it earns its place, even though it's just a non sequitur just jammed in.
Actually, my favorite part of the movie is Dom DeLuise in drag.
Yeah.
I think he's so funny. I learned that Dom DeLuise got the Razzie in 1987 for this role, but not for worst supporting actor, but for worst supporting actress.
See, that's a Razzie thing.
I think,
to do.
well, I don't trust those guys.
I
definitely don't trust those guys.
Yeah.
I don't think that was deserved, because I think that Dom DeLuise is actually one of the shining bright stars in this movie.
I think he's terrific in the film.
Hilarious.
Brave and fearless.
And frankly, to tell you the truth, I was afraid, and I even said, okay, I liked his first appearance as the Ant, but then I was afraid he was going to take over the movie. Because that tends to, especially in the 80s, that tends to happen in his films, and usually not to a good effect when he takes over. That ended up not being the case. He's playing a female matriarch character, but he doesn't play her over the top. He doesn't use her to dominate scenes. She actually fits into the fabric of the scenes really well. Oddly enough, you take the story more seriously when she recounts it than you do any other time in the film, because she actually says it with, there's a sense of gravitas about the way he's playing it.
Yeah.
So he's not playing it as just a joke.
Yeah.
There's a gravitas to that character. I think the movie gets windy in the whole second half. It has the same problem. It's a similar problem to Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother. In both cases, Gene Wilder has an idea, but he doesn't really come up with a story to sell the idea. The fact that there's not a genuine mystery to be solved per se in Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother is a problem. It just kind of doesn't go anywhere because there's no story. And this doesn't really have a story. It has a situation, and the situation's good enough, but then the story part of it gets windy as it goes on. Paul Smith starts off terrific as the Doctor, but then he gets wishy-washy. And when he got wishy-washy, then the whole story got wishy-washy. I mean, to such a degree that I was even having a hard time yesterday when we were talking about the movie to remember what happened. And then I thought, maybe I should watch it again just to remember what happens in the second half. And then it all came back to me. And I remember the brutal fight where it seems like Gene Wilder is getting his face punched off.
Yeah.
All right. Not punched out. It's getting punched off with like the largest sound effects that would be out of place in Ricochet. All right. Are like now like Jonathan Pryce bashing his face in.
He's so sleazy in this movie.
Yeah,
Jonathan
I don't care for
Pryce.
Jonathan Pryce in this film. All right.
He's so sleazy.
He's definitely sleazy. But I didn't care for his performance. But having said all that, I don't want to reveal the surprise at the end.
Because it is a surprise.
But the surprise at the end makes the whole movie.
Yeah.
It just makes it made all my problems go away.
Yeah.
Literally every single problem I had with the film up to then went away, and I was just kind of had a happy smile on my face once the true reason for being is revealed.
For me, I can watch Gene Wilder struggling to construct a sentence and I will laugh. My problem with this movie is that the walk this way joke kind of starts wearing on me after a while. But whenever I'm given Gene Wilder and his pals, and frankly, and Gilda Radner and Dom DeLuise, I'm okay. I'm on solid ground. But it feels like whenever I'm away from them, it just deviates.
Look, truthfully, I know they were in love, and I know she's charming, and she is charming in this, but I truly miss what Madeline Kahn would have brought to the role. Anytime I see Gene Wilder, I think of Madeline Kahn, all right, as his partner in it.
What would a Video Archives episode be without a film review? You know that one of our favorite critics, Franklin Browner, had something to say about Haunted Honeymoon.
I have a Franklin Browner
okay.
review, if an old one, if you'd like me to.
Yes, I would.
I would love to hear his
So
thoughts.
this one is from the Winnipeg City Press, and this was 2 months before he famously quit.
Okay.
Gene Wilder does double duty in 1986's 1940s stylistic throwback Haunted Honeymoon as both its director and funny man star. Along for the retro yarn are pal Dom DeLuise and wife Gilda Radner. Radner and Wilder play stars of a yesteryear radio play of the film's eponymous title, and the radio play scenes are by far the most energized of the film, a tour de force of directing by the dexterous Wilder, who shows great reverence to his more obscure cinematic sources, clearly learned from his mentor in this department, the great nostalgist Mel Brooks. While the results may not be Young Frankenstein or even High Anxiety, it still fills the heart with both cinematic nostalgia and matinee laughter. I give this film a B for boo!
That was a good Frank. That was your Franklin reviews are killing it, man.
There it is. There it is. Franklin speaks.
Well, he's got a lot to say.
Yeah, he just won't shut up
A B
sometimes.
for boo.
Yeah, B for boo. It should B minus for boo minus.
Boo. In the poltergeisty sense, not in the Rotten Tomatoes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
For anyone interested in watching the Haunted Honeymoon, you can get yourself a VHS rip of it on the Internet Archive. It's kind of hard to find streaming otherwise than that, but Internet Archive always comes in clutch for me. I picked up an HBO Canon videotape, just like the one that Quentin has, for $12.
And I will say one thing without ruining the surprise ending, but in the surprise ending, considering that Dom DeLuise gives the whole performance in drag, you see him not in drag in one shot of the film, and it's the most dapper and handsome I've ever seen Dom DeLuise in any movie ever. It's like the way I wish Dom DeLuise walked around in life. All right, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
He looks like check him out,
Yeah.
man. It's like Pavarotti.